there's just been thing after thing after thing that has got me to the point where I am, where
Hmm.
I've never had a problem speaking my truth, and I had never had a problem standing up for myself, because both of my parents very much were like, they raised me to be um outspoken, and they raised me also to fight for others.
Hey, it's Breaking Barriers, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging podcast. We're here for real talk. We're not afraid to go there, and we want you to come away emboldened and energized to take action and make change.
We believe our diversity, our differences, when joined together by a common set of ideals, makes us stronger.
When I set out to help someone, it is my intention to do just that. I'm not trying to do anything other than meet somebody at their humanity.
All right, what's happening? What's happening, world? Back for another episode of Top Rank Breaking Barriers podcast, brought to you by our silver sponsor, Rise to Greatness. I'm your co-host, Anthony Arrington.
Nick Ford.
Joy Briscoe. Hello, world.
Oh, boy, we got a treat for you. We got a treat for you, world. Listen, there's a little over 100 black-led and black-owned newspapers in the country, a little over 100. There's only one in Iowa, and she's with us today. And we are so excited to have her. Nick, tell us about our guest.
Yeah, so Dana James is the publisher and founder of Black Iowa News and the new quarterly statewide Black Iowa newspaper. And we know it's coming to some stores here soon. We were just talking about that. Their mission is to highlight black perspective, showcase the black community, and amplify the voice of black Iowans, because we all know their other media doesn't. She's a former Des Moines Register reporter, treasurer of Iowa Association of Black Journalists, writes the column New Black Iowa as a member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative, and also host of a podcast, Being Heard, Two Black Women, Coffee and Conversations with Lya Williams as well. So welcome to the show, and we're excited. So.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So that was
Super
a
excited.
little bio. So tell us a little more about yourself. Maybe how you tell us a little bit more about your background, maybe that people would find intriguing.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a homegrown, born and raised Des Moines, went to East High School and Grandview University.
Okay.
Lived here all my life. But the weird thing I think about me is that I've lived here all my life, but when I've talked to different people, like friends who had kids that would graduate from high school, I would always tell them to leave here. I was still here, but I would always tell anybody else, no, don't stay here, go be somewhere else. And, but at the same time, while I've, watched some of our problems in this state as Black people continue to be the same or get worse, I decided that, hey, it's obviously up to us to really address some of the problems. It's up to us to celebrate our wins. And I really, the pandemic happening really is what got me back into journalism the way I'm doing it now.
Sure. No, that's interesting. I was just having a conversation with a young professional, and you two probably know him. We'll talk offline. Who's leaving our city because for him, his career and his personal goals, he doesn't feel that this is the place for him. And I hate it when I see young folks leave, especially young Black folks. I don't like that. But so yeah, I certainly folks are doing it. I was reading your quote because I stalked you a little bit, but on your website you said that I founded Black Iowa News because I was tired of watching news outlets do a poor job of telling Black stories during the pandemic and failing to tell us how truly the pandemic was affecting our communities. And you mentioned that your mission is to highlight Black perspectives, showcase the Black community, and amplify Black voices. And you focus on sharing those stories. So can you kind of expand on your thoughts a little bit behind that? Was it an incident, or was it just an accumulation, during COVID that you just said, or did you just walk in your room? Because you left a national reputable position with the Des Moines Register. And said,
yeah, I had been gone from the Register for quite some time.
Okay.
And had worked in like internal communications for college, had worked in insurance.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten married on March 6, 2020. So a week before things really went wild with the pandemic. And I was working at an insurance company remotely and just, start married life and thought I was going to be cool. But when I was watching the stories, come through about the pandemic, it always just said, X amount of Iowans are infected, X amount have died. they never really told us, well, how's it affecting each demographic? And I really wanted to know that, because I'm one of those people, like, I just consume a massive amount of media. So I'm reading these stories out of Chicago, St. Louis, Atlanta, and Black families are getting decimated. When I say decimated, I'm talking about grandpa, mom, dad, children dying in one family. So, you're starting to see that. But I was like, oh, well, hey, let's just go be consumers. Let's still eat out. Let's still go to work. And I'm like, wrong. So I'm watching this and I was like, okay, well, if the mainstream media isn't going to sound the alarm, then I would. And so I hopped on a platform real quick. And actually, one of the first people I interviewed was a gentleman up in Waterloo who used to be the head of the Iowa, what was that association called? Anyway, I digress. But so I was learning real quickly how the pandemic was affecting Black people in Waterloo with the packing plants and things like that, what was going on there. I was talking to people here who were saying, well, I have to work, I have no choice, or I really don't understand what's going on with the pandemic. So I made it my business to find out, and to also make sure that the people that I found out from, they needed to be Black too, in my mind. So I had to bend over backwards trying to find Black doctors, nurses, and epidemiologists of color, only because I couldn't find a Black one at the time. But that formed really the foundation of Black Iowa News. And what makes what I do different is that it's not just, well, here's the latest story from a Black perspective. It's all the people in the story are Black. I will find whatever experts I need to find, whether we're talking about COVID or business or whatever. That's super important to me, that this is us hearing about things of importance to us from us. Mm-hmm. And so that's how
I wish we would have been. I wish we would have been connected. So my oldest, we just had her on her podcast too. She lives in New York. During this time, she was hired by NYU for the Recover program. So her job was to do community outreach for Black and brown populations, at first for vaccine hesitancy, right? Like making people aware of that. And I always would tell her, like, Jasmine, I really need to get you on something here, because there's so much misinformation out there that we are dying like crazy. And then she went on to do go to the long-term COVID research. So that's where she's at now. But in that minute of time, and I'm like, and I think because of her bubble in New York, they weren't, and this is again, when they actually were talking about national strategies, people just sometimes forget that because of industrialization and all of these things, there's like Black people here. Now, the overall number of Iowa is low, but if you are in one of the metro areas, it's not that low. And so I almost feel like when they did the campaigns that were to counter some of the misinformation about vaccines, I just commend you, because we were Midwest, we were almost left off the radar of being a place where people needed to invest in getting the right information to us. And we like you said.
We absolutely were. So much so that in my neighborhood, I partnered with a church to have a vaccine clinic for Black people in my neighborhood, because we just, where they put the sites at, even when my husband and I went to get our vaccine, we drove roughly an hour away to Lamoni and got it there, because when it first came out, you couldn't even really find it. There were a lot of problems with equity with the pandemic, and it was purposeful. Like, if you ask me, it's purposeful. Like, our government did not care, our state government did not care about people. And so we had to. And you saw a lot of mutual aid happening during the pandemic, which I loved. And I almost feel like Black Iowa News, it was born out of that as well. The need for us to do our own thing, for us to protect us. And so, but roughly 15 days after I founded Black Iowa News in the height of the pandemic, then George Floyd was murdered. So it's been just a constant list of things to do since then that that keep me busy.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of old, and my view of the media is the media. One of their big responsibilities is accountability of the government and politics, right? So then I look at our state and I see a black woman running for governor at one point, and I see black man running for mayors, and some successful, some not. But then I see the media portrayal and how one-sided it seems to be, which is why I think what you're doing is even more needed. How do we get to the point where these candidates actually seem to have more of a success rate in Iowa where it's so needed? And then maybe at the next level, at the state level, so we don't see some of these policies come down that are just, to most of us, mind-numbing. How do we get the media to be more partaking in that, or more people to do what you're doing and start their own?
I think people have to expand their idea of what the media is, and allow for a small outfit like mine, to be considered right up there with some of these legacy media, the registers and your TV media. It's a weird thing because a lot of times, I'll interview someone and, I'll write the story way before these other entities write about them. And then when those entities, write about them, it's like, oh my God, I was on the register. And I'm like, no, you was on Black Iowa News first.
Yeah.
So I think and that's part of the beauty, I think, of what I'm doing with Black Iowa News in taking it to the communities, is that you don't have to go find Black Iowa News. Black Iowa News found you. I brought it right to your town. I took it to where you shop. I took it to where you buy your groceries. I took it to your where you worship. And so I think, given time, I'll be able to grow Black Iowa News to where, people know what it is, people read it. But to your point, when it comes to these candidates, I mean, I was at an event recently, here in Des Moines, and you had Akeo Abdul-Samad, state rep, having a very deep conversation publicly with the head of the Democratic Party about how the party is failing at developing Black leadership, how it's failed in the past with the candidates it had. So something definitely does need to happen there. I will be writing about it because we've had some great candidates and they weren't supported the way they needed to be. And so, one of the things when I just wrote recently about the local school board candidates here, I heard over and over, they needed more support. You had candidates that couldn't even afford to buy signs. So if we're going to nurture and develop people to run, they're going to need mass support. And it starts really with us all the way up. And also, like what I do, I think, with Black Iowa News is I'm really wanting to see us. I know there are people doing great things. I mean, there's fantastic things happening in Waterloo, Des Moines, all of these communities. We got some bomb people working in these communities, and they've been working without the need for recognition, without anything, because they believe in their communities. But I feel like we also need kind of a statewide kind of comprehensive plan of what we're going to work on as a community across the state. How are we going to develop these leaders? How are we going to help these budding businesses get off the ground and get supported? So even like what I'm doing in terms of running a media company, I just recently produced a holiday gift guide that was to feature all Black-owned businesses and uplift them. And I really wanted like 100 in there. And that was my goal. I fell way short because there's roughly, I think, 11 or 12 in there. But again, everything that we do has to be about uplifting our own. So that back to what I said earlier, where I used to tell these high school students to leave Iowa. Well, we need to give them something to stay here for. And
Right.
when you look at the way politics are going right now, you look at what's happening with DEI and B, you look at what's happening with the book bans and what we know is coming. You look at what happens to the regents in terms of, slashing DEI from what they're doing. It makes it hard to encourage someone to stay here in that climate. But literally, hey, we were here from before Iowa was even a thing. We've done nothing but help make this place. The good parts, we've been there helping make it great. So I hope at some point I could suggest to kids to, stay here and try to thrive. But right now that's hard to do because the problems are, I feel they're dire. And I almost feel like a conspiracy theorist in a way when I say how dire it is, because people are like, oh, Iowa, it's relatively clean, it's relatively safe, and it makes some of these top lists for top places to be a young business professional, but not a young Black
If you
business
look like me,
professional.
it's great.
Right.
Yeah, but not anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because because this is a challenge I have, and actually we just talked to Jazz's daughter yesterday, young amazing Black woman, and she ain't coming back. She said, "I'm New York," and that's we don't. My kids are New York; they're not coming back, I don't think. But
she's actually trying to convince, and she shared.
Right.
She wants me. She doesn't feel. I mean, now it's better, but for a long time she's just like, Mom, I don't feel like you're valued there. I think it's all the things. When she comes home and no one in the height of COVID would have a mask on, she would be freaking out. She was just like, you got to get out of there. Right.
This is why I think your paper is so important, what you're doing, because you have a chance to really, I always say we live in a global society, and technology and newspapers, you have a chance to bring some of these wonderful, like you said, bomb-ass Black people to the forefront and give them their flowers, even though they're not asking for them. Heck, I'm a hip hop lover, and I didn't even know until I read your paper that Bangladesh was from Des Moines. Like I've been hearing this guy's music, Lil Jon and all these guys. I didn't know he was from Des Moines. I thought he was from Atlanta because that's where he's been. And your article, he said it. He said he didn't speak too well about Des Moines in Iowa, and
He didn't.
And so that's why your paper matters. But I want to switch. I didn't want to cut you off. I want to switch gears just a little bit here about your paper, about the newspaper as an industry. So here you are, a Black woman. And here's all my hurdles I'm going to give you. I'm going to ask, how the hell do you overcome them? Black woman in Iowa, starting a business, a media business in a city that is dominated by that Register thing over there that you used to work for.
Paper news.
Paper news.
Yes.
And paper news, with the decline in the number of papers as an industry, you're really at an uphill battle in terms of what you do. How do you feel about all that? How did that impact your decision making?
Oh, wow. So
that's a lot of hurdles.
It is hurdles, but let me tell you, I will overcome them. I will leap over them like FloJo or whoever if I have
that
to.
Audience, hear that.
Because it's just needed. It's so needed that I have to make it work. And now when I started, everybody's like digital news. I started on a Substack. I had a partnership with Meta for a couple of years that helped like grow my Facebook followers to almost 20,000. I had those things, and I'm still doing that digital thing. Still got a very nice, shiny website, update news daily, Black news. So I still have some of those things that everyone else has, but we have something golden, I feel, in the newspaper, because I came into it at a time when those newspapers, they're dropping like flies.
Yeah.
Iowa's lost a lot of, these small towns have lost a lot of newspapers. It is challenging in that the one thing that I'm discovering more and more is that, it needs that constant influx of support. And so, I have subscribers to the physical paper. I have subscribers to the email newsletter. I have people that they're like, matter of fact, this week, 2 times this week, I've been at a community event, and I had people like a grandma would put money in your hand on the low. I had people just put $10 in my hand. and be like, here, keep going,
Yeah.
So we know it's needed, but it is a hurdle. And I've done things. I've gotten grants from Google and others
Mm-hmm.
to help keep this thing going. And I have subscribers, like I said, but it does take a lot. Printing is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Driving this paper from Sioux City to Dubuque to West Burlington and all these places in between.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm in close to 100 locations.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot, and for me and a few freelancers to do. But it's just, I'm one of those people that, at least I've discovered this about myself now in doing this, that I'm just going to get it done. It has to be done. And I view it as really the most important thing that I have to do really in life right now is help at this time when I feel and what I see and others see the intentional erasure of Black people, the erasure of Blackness. When you see, like I said, our governor too, Republican, the trifecta they got going. When you see these things happening that will further harm us, it's that important to me to keep going. So I've started a t-shirt line. I will just keep adding any list of business or any tactics that I can use to keep this going, because we need people in Fort Dodge who face a lot of issues and have had a lot of issues with law enforcement. We need to connect them with Des Moines. We need to connect them with Waterloo. We need to know what's going on in our own state.
Yes.
For the longest time, I would tell you I didn't. I viewed certain. Okay, Dubuque is a good example. I'd only been through Dubuque. The only thing I knew about Dubuque and Black people had to do with the KKK.
Yep.
It being there in the past, I didn't know a lot. But then you go to these cities and you see the way that Black people are living. You see some of the people in the communities working so hard to make this place better for kids. I want everybody to know who each other is.
Yes.
I want some church member in Fort Dodge to take that paper home and be like, wow, this is, I'm gonna reach out to that person to see how they did it, because we need this thing here. So then we all talk more. We all, and also really I think for kids in particular, and I need to really work on this. And trust me, I'm always thinking about how I can do this better, because I want more young Black creative youth to be involved in the paper, to be involved online, to be involved in news, to really understand what news is, how to vet something, because that's going to make them better people in their community. That's going to make them voters. That's going to make them the ones that stand up and say, hey, this policy that'll help them get to Capitol, up to the Capitol, to say, no, we stand against this initiative. We stand against this bill. We need more of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Joy?
Oh no, this is all just so good and timely. Go ahead, Anthony. Are you asking something? And now my question.
I just want to learn a little bit more about. I'm interested in learning about Dana, the person. And do you think that your lived experience in Des Moines and as a Black woman contributes as well, I guess, to why you do what you do? Maybe you kind of already answered that question, but as you think about your lived experience, what's impacted you? What are some aha moments that made you say, I have to do this type of work for my people, so to speak?
I'll give you a recent one. So I went to I'd had a mammogram, and I was waiting, for the results and whatnot. And the nurse called and she read me my results. And I had looked in the portal, right? And so I see in there, it says, hey, you need to come back in January for a follow-up. And she tells me, nope, it's October of 2024. And speaking how I'm speaking to you now, I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but the portal says this, and I'm not, explain to me. She got huffy and mad, and she slammed the phone in my ear. This is the person, a nurse.
Whoa.
Because And this has been my experience as a Black woman in Des Moines, Iowa, my whole entire life. Either I have to do what I call a shock and awe to be heard, or, I just have to get wild. And that's been my friend's experience. We've worked in these companies that were very anti-Black, very toxic cultures to Black people. Um, and I'm tired of that. And so some of that fuels it as well, in that I don't want other people to continue living like that. I want people, to fight. And there are plenty of people. I mean, gosh, look at Rashonda Young in Waterloo. You want to talk about somebody that's fighting, for something better, like
Yes.
we have to do that. It has not been this easy, okay, I have a college degree. It's not been this easy, straight trajectory up like people think that it could be. It's been up and down, because I've been on jobs where people gave presentations and there was a Black man in the presentation, and the one of my co-workers said, oh, well, that's the angry Black man. Like, there's just been thing after thing after thing that has got me to the point where I am, where I've never had a problem speaking my truth, and I had never had a problem standing up for myself, because both of my parents very much were like, they raised me to be outspoken, and they raised me also to fight for others. My mother, she worked in Des Moines schools for 20 some years. She was very much a fighter for the underdog. And so I feel like a lot of what I'm doing here is carrying on what they would have me do. Also, I'm big into, I don't feel like I need anybody to put me on. In fact, I like to put other people on if I can. And so I didn't need anybody. The world has enough people telling and they don't always just tell they just say things like, oh, do you think that's going to work? And, oh, these newspaper business is rough. There's all these newspapers failing, that's probably not a good business plan. And I view that as, that was then and that was them. But as far as what I'm doing, I'm forging ahead, and I'm trying to, like I said, garner support. I need people to support the newspaper. I need them to interact online. I need them to get the email newsletter. And I need people to also want to be a part of it, because I'm very much like, email me and tell me some people in your town that, like you said, that need those flowers that never got them. I want those people having those flowers in Black Iowa News.
Yeah.
You might not get it at the Register, but you're going to get it here.
I love that. I want to throw something out there too and get some feedback, and I appreciate that. So my daughter, my oldest, she sent me this because we just have these conversations, and so I watched this documentary recently. It's called South to Black Power, and basically there's this concept that reverse migration. So most Black people came in kind of through the South. If people actually return there, then that way would be a way to gain some political power to reverse all of these things. Now here's the thing. I at this stage of my life, I actually like living in Iowa, right? Like, I like the affordability. I like the accessibility. I like there's a lot of things that I like. Now, again, the politics and all of those things, don't like that, right? And I like to travel, right? Like when it's not snow on the ground, because they're going to say that. But when it's not snow. Yeah, right, exactly. So when I can travel and it's safe, I do like to travel, right? And because of the affordability, I can afford to do so. But I thought that was just a very interesting concept, especially because I recently, this summer, I was in Alabama. We did a 1619 Freedom School retreat. And so we went to just a bunch of historical sites in Alabama. And for me, while I was there, it was heavy. I could still feel the racial tension in the air. In fact, we were there a week before on that very pier that the big brawl broke out on. And all of us were like, "Oh, we're not surprised."
The white cap.
Literally, we took.
Yeah.
Yes, we literally took pictures in
Aquaman.
front of.
Yeah.
Yes, we literally took pictures in front of the Harry yacht because in fact, and I'm not even going to name it, but somebody who leads in our community, he texts me like, "Did y'all do that?" Are y'all but and I can feel it. So like, it was this interesting concept to me because I was just like, and I actually lived in Texas when I was in the Air Force, but I was just like, I never thought like the Alabama stuff. While I love it and I love the HBCUs and the history, it's heavy sometimes. And so, so when as he explained it, I was like, that's very interesting. And then he also interviewed someone doing some work in Chicago, where she is working to reinvent her neighborhood in Chicago, and she's like, oh no, I'm not leaving. I love Chicago. I'm gonna push Chicago to be better, right?
Mhm.
And Chicago to give people the equity. And so I thought those were two very interesting concepts that kind of have the same goal, but just different in how we do it. And so I think about you being in Iowa, being in Des Moines, born and raised, like, what are the things that really do keep you here? And what are the things that when you see the media and again, where we're like, sometimes it feels like you're definitely punching up when you talk about the politics right now and the fact that we just lost the regent. So, I've got friends that are probably getting ready to be out of jobs or have to very much redefine what their jobs look like. I know young people now that when they go on our college campuses, probably aren't going to feel like they have a safe space. And this is not just Black young people. This is my Latinos. This is my LGBTQ. Like, and then the diversity just makes us better, right? So the way the businesses are suffering with workforce right now, knowing they're doing stuff that's going to make that even more hard for you guys and more difficult. Because if you're Googling it and you got choices, you're not really coming, unless you're superintendents, which I want to ask why. But in general, you're not really coming to Iowa. So Dana, what keeps you here?
Ooh, what keeps me here? That is a good question. And I've always felt like I said, like Des Moines is relatively clean. It's relatively, aesthetically pleasing. It's home. Also, I got a lot of people I love here, people in the ground here. And my sister lives up in the Twin Cities. So, it's just 252 miles away to my next favorite person in the world, other than my husband. So it affords you like some vantage points. But now what keeps me here, especially when you see the political climate being so toxic, now this newspaper and this company keep me here because at the end of the day, when somebody looks back on this time period and they're like, whoa, what happened? This is wild. They will have editions of this newspaper of people that were fighting against what we see happening.
Yeah.
They will understand in a better way than I've understood about all the freedom fighters from the past. I mean, we've had people here, Black people, always fighting for this place. We've had, Edna Griffin and all these other people that they didn't even teach us about in school. We had to teach ourselves. Our community had to teach us about some of the past Black leaders and what they did. I want to be a part of changing that. And that's this next edition of the paper. I really want it to have as many Black Iowa historical characters in it as it possibly can. At the end of the day, I want you to be able to take this paper, and I want kids particularly take it and flip through and see these Edna Griffiths, see Alexander Clark, see all of these people that contributed to this place, so that they know too they came from greatness. And we're in the midst of great leaders and great people working in their communities, and it's up to us. When I was at the Register, roughly in '99 is when I graduated from college, so I went straight to the Register. The Black prison population at that time was 25%. And it's still the exact same number today. You cannot tell me that that's not intentional.
Right.
And when you look at everything that is happening across the board, the education, like you're saying, Joy, the workplace issues, the same challenges remain. While allegedly people are meeting, they're getting money to work on these problems, and they're the same or worse. So at some point, we have to say, I feel that that's not enough. We've got to work harder. We've got to take control of bringing like a new perspective to fixing these problems. We can't wait for anybody. We can't wait for another task force. We can't wait for another committee meeting. Like, brothers is going to jail. Sisters are going to jail. They're going to prison. They're taking, plea deals that they shouldn't be taking. In the school realm, you've got these districts looking at removing equity and removing goals that are set to help Black students excel. We've got to fight that like never before. If this place is going to be a place that where 10 years from now you ask, like Joy, your daughter, where you would ask, an Iowan, hey, would you consider living here? Okay, well, y'all getting it together. It's starting to look better. Maybe I can come back and be a part of it. Right now, no, heck no. I've had many people in journalism, Black journalism in particular, tell me, they're like, y'all sound oppressed. Like, you should consider moving to another state and still doing Black Iowa News. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay right here. And when I have the opportunity to highlight something someone's doing, when I have the opportunity to go to the Capitol, when I have the opportunity to take this paper from one city to another, so I can talk to people and I can see what's going on, and I can be like, okay, I'm gonna write a story about that. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's me using any gifts that God gave me for us, and in a way that, and this is a key thing, I don't have to answer to anyone else. I don't have, an editor above me saying, well, like I've had in the past, saying, well, we don't want people reading their Sunday morning newspaper to feel bad about racism, so let's rewrite that. I ain't got to do that no more. I can write it how it needs to be said. If something stinks and it's funky, I can be like, look, this is messed up.
It stinks and it's funky.
Exactly.
And Dana, have you found too that there's a spirit of, I will say, for the flip side of the oppression piece that is definitely here, I feel like there's an interconnectedness in Iowans. Like I'm in Des Moines on Sunday for there's an exhibit game with is it FAMU or so Lindsay Kennedy. I'm sure you know Lindsay. Okay, so Lindsay, Jerica, they got some space, and so me and my daughter are going up and whenever they do stuff, they always invite us up, and so I think that there is that part, a piece of like the interconnectedness that we have that would be harder to have in areas that have a bunch of larger cities. We don't have a bunch of large cities. Right. We got like Des Moines, then Cedar Rapids, Waterloo. We like smaller than all y'all. So like, but there's a connection that comes from that because of our proximity, because we're different, but there's similarity in our experiences that really kind of makes us all connected, right? Like it's like you said, where you're in Storm Lake, where you're here, where you're everywhere. So I think that's another one of the benefits about being in our state.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I viewed Black Iowa News, and why I didn't try to just make it something for Des Moines, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted it to be, I view us, all the Black people in Iowa, I view that as one community. Because if you think about it, 130-some thousand Black Iowans, that's a suburb somewhere. Like, and that's why I view it also as that. But you do have a lot of that. You do have a lot of, one of my besties just was up in Waterloo for the Temptations. Like, it's nothing to do, the more we know about what's going on in these other cities, the more we can partake and we can come and do that. And I love that.
No, that's great. Go ahead.
So I'm curious here. So obviously, I mean, I read all your material and I see it all. And I would even argue that not only is it important for the Black community to read your material, it's also important for the non-Black community to read your material, right? When you say the word angry Black man, angry Black woman, my first response is obviously to shut that down and try to figure out why they're saying that. But now I have material, I say, well, why do you think that? Here's reasons why that comes out.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to go there. I think I was going to ask, from your perspective so far, have you seen your paper have leverage in non-black communities? Because, you know, there's something about power and leverage, that Des Moines editor who tried to tell you what to write, right? But there's probably 30 people in your office at the time who want to hear about that stuff, but you couldn't write it. Now you can. And if you can be a voice to influence even non-black folks, that's a plus. And to your point, if we got to stay here with all these folks, we got to punch back. So do you feel that that's happening with your paper? Or what's your sense of that right now, I guess?
It absolutely is happening, and it's a happy byproduct. I have tons of white subscribers. I have people like this white man wrote me from down in Burlington area, a 2-page letter talking about how a story that I had written called "What White People Get Wrong About Black Dads" had changed his mind about what he thought about the Black family.
Heck yeah.
It had opened his eyes to some things that he hadn't thought about. I have white people in little white churches that have emailed me saying, we have a committee and we're talking about the issues that you're bringing up. And anytime I write something, I will have a white group, white people write me and say, I've got a group working on this now. We're working on Black issues. We're working to be more informed. We're working to understand, and we're working to help. And I love that. And I fully did expect that should be happening.
That should be happening.
Because it's not, and people have to understand and get used to the fact that when you say that you're uplifting Black something, at what point did I say I was downgrading or downplaying anyone else? People want to feel that way, but it's not true.
Right.
You know, we do live here. And like Joy said earlier, you know, I prize diversity, and I prize being able to have people understand, because that understanding will help us get to the point where equity won't be able to become a bad word like it is now.
Right.
If we understood more about each other, and even low key just basically like accepted each other, then you wouldn't have all of these groups trying to fight to take things away from other people or downplay them. Like, imagine how ignorant you got to be. And I don't know about being on y'all's podcast, because y'all just got me being real today.
Hey,
this
is how we are.
We take it.
This is what we want.
Imagine being so ignorant
that you can say ignorant if you don't
know that you literally don't want to read. Don't want people to read books that ain't got nothing to do with you. But you know, like, I just feel like we are in some crazy times, and so if we're going to get better, I'm gonna start with us. If we're going to get better, then we need to understand what the problems are. We need to talk about a way forward. We need to involve as many people as possible. And if other people want to come along with us and help, and there are a lot of helpers, that is great. Just know that when I write stuff, I'm not targeting anybody but Black folks. But I love it that other people read it and support it, and still will put $10 in my hand, will send me $100 to keep going, because we need that. We're all in the state together. Yeah. So if one group is tanking, how's that? We're all going to tank.
Yeah.
We can't.
Why do I want to get in the boat? I'm in the boat right now. I want to pull people into the. Why do I want to drown? Like, I want to pull people into the boat.
Or some people with the sticks pushing people down.
Yeah.
Right. So and then you have,
go ahead.
You have these, at least from my perspective, you have every, legislative session. We see these legislators come up there and carry out their petty gripes and grudges. And we have to fight against that. And we cannot let that poison our whole society. We cannot. And our kids, they need more. They deserve more from us. They deserve more in these schools. They deserve more in these communities. Because when I was growing up in Des Moines, we had all kinds of Black community. We Black people really looked out for each other. they supported education, and now everybody is, admittedly, there are a lot of problems and people are worried about their own households. But I'm saying, let's figure out a way that we can work on some of these things so that we all get to rise.
Yes.
And that we put our money and our energy and our talents to work on behalf of each other.
Yes.
So that this is a decent place to live in the future.
So I have a term. I've told Joy and Anthony this. If I ever read a book, this is what the title's it's going to cover. So I'm on with 3 powerful Black Iowans. Iowa nice.
How you feel?
Okay, Iowa nice. Oh Lord, yeah, Iowa nice. It was a thing.
Okay.
It was a thing in the past, and I find myself guilty of it sometimes too. But I view Iowa nice anymore as being insidious, because the Iowa nice will keep you quiet in the face of your oppression. The Iowa nice will be like, well, we really do deserve this, but let's say it in a proper way, or let's wait our turn. And I say, bump all that.
Yeah.
Like, and Iowa nice today, it isn't nice. There's nothing nice about that.
Yeah.
There's nothing nice about these things that we see happening to people. So we need to retire that term.
Yeah, we do.
Excuse me, until we can have it really mean something.
Yeah.
Because right now it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Well, this kind of reflects on what Joy was saying earlier. As you think about, the power to the South with the folks moving to the South, and when Joy was down there, it felt heavy, right? And I've always been of the belief coming up, I don't even remember when I heard the term Iowa nice, but when you said insidious, it triggered me, because I used to say often that, I'd rather live down South. At least I know that man don't like me. Up here, I don't know. And it's that insidious Iowa nice is the reason I don't know. But the last 5 years, it's not insidious anymore. It's not insidious. And so that is a good point. It was a good question, and I don't believe it is. So write your book, man.
If I ever get them
Right.
And by the way, bring a stack of your newspapers up here when you come in January.
I will.
Load
Can't
'em
wait.
up.
Can't
Load 'em
wait.
up.
And if you can send us a link of where you can actually get them all the different stores and stuff, we can post that on our pages as well.
As we kind of get ready to wrap up here, I don't think we have a listener question today, do we? I don't think we do.
We've got some good questions. So.
We've been chopping it up. So why don't you drop your website and some information about your paper for the folks listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So please visit blackiowanews.com. I would love it if you would join the email newsletter. And also you can find us on Facebook at Black Iowa News. I'm also on all the other social media sites at Black Iowa News, LinkedIn, Threads, Instagram. Right. And, on Facebook, we have lively conversations all the time about issues. So come on there, get in the comments. We keep it respectful, unlike some other media outlets, but we won't go into that. But come, we try to have a conversation, because that's what really it's all about. Whether it's online, whether it's print, whether you're reading, you're flipping pages or scrolling, Black Iowa News is there trying to uplift our community. Yeah,
and right here on Breaking Bears, they are as well. We got it right here, so we thank you for that, and keep spreading the word. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
As we wrap up, are there any last words of advice you want to give to business owners, young Black people who want to leave Iowa,
or want
those newspapers who don't tell the truth, or any last words you want to give to the?
Yeah, I would say my last words are that don't pay attention to the no's you get from society, whether somebody tells you no, or whether it's just a sense that it's a no, or whether somebody's just downplaying your idea. That's to me a great indicator that you need to keep going forward. You can do great from Iowa. We have people doing great things. So don't give up, but definitely don't let people tell you no. Just do your thing and be great.
Well, that's great advice. Great advice from a great one.
Sons, if you're listening, if I tell you no, that means no.
Well, thank you so much to them listeners. Don't take no for an answer. That's a big tip. So take us out, Nick.
So
thank you for
again,
coming.
Dana, so much for joining us today on Breaking Barriers. We truly appreciate your time and your insight. Big shout out to our Silver Diversity sponsor, Rise to Greatness. Also want to give a big thanks to our friends at Breaking Barriers Community Savings Bank, Tyler Lincoln Barnes DDS, IMON Communications, Bankers Trust. Well, there's a lot of them now.
We're good.
And we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up, send your questions to our info@toprankculture.com. And we're on all those other social media. I'm old. I don't even know what they all are anymore. So, but hit us there as well. And then over to you, Joy, for our final thoughts.
Remember, we drop 2 episodes a month. So hopefully, I mean, this was really good, Dana. We really enjoyed talking to you today. We've had the pleasure of just really connecting with some powerhouses. So more to come on that. If you have any show ideas for us, email us at info@toprankculture.com.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right. Thank you. Take care,
Keep
Dana.
breaking barriers.
Bottom line, advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment.
There are too few people in the world willing to be the domino, too few people willing to take that fall.